Well, Phil Steele released his first, second, third, and fourth team All-Pac-12 preseason teams. Oregon's got plenty of players on there, but there is one name on the first team that's a big surprise. Could be good news, though. Here we go.
You are Locked On Ducks, your daily podcast on the Oregon Ducks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, it is that time once again for Locked On Ducks. I'm your host, Spencer McLaughlin. Thank you so much for making this your first listen or your first view of the day. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, and your number one source to stay up to date with the Ducks. If you haven't already, please like, comment, subscribe, rate, review wherever you listen to or watch this show. It's a wonderful Friday. We got my man Rian Winter, Sports Chat 503 on Twitter and on YouTube as well. You know him there. You know him because he's a frequent guest here on the show. It had been too long, so I wanted to see him. He's here. Ryan, are we ready to just absolutely send Duck fans into a frenzy of excitement going into the weekend?
Let's go. We got a good weekend ahead of us, buddy.
We do indeed, and I definitely do. But we don't care about what I'm doing this weekend, which is something kind of cool. We care about what Oregon has got going on. So Phil Steele puts out all these first, second, third team, and fourth teams and whatnot. And, a lot of names on there that I think are pretty standard. And, on the first team, you had Bucky Irving, you had Brandon Dorlus. On the second team, Troy Franklin, Camden Lewis. Third team, Bo Nix, Terrence Ferguson, Evan Williams, and Chris Hudson. Fourth team, Tez Johnson, Jordan Birch, Popo Amavai, Josh Connerly. Oh, by the way, on the first team was Alabama cornerback transfer Khyree Jackson. Ryan, that was a huge surprise to me. Now, Phil Steele is covering a lot of territory here, so there is definitely the possibility in making all these lists for all these conferences that, as you know more, you actually don't know as much because you're not going as in depth and you're spread very thin. Maybe it's an oversight on his part, but I think Khyree Jackson can be a starter certainly, but I did not have him pegged as preseason All-Pac-12 first team selection. What about you?
Yeah, I like that, as you said. I think that's pretty nice. I also think that, as a national guy goes, he's going to see national guys. And, he might have a better read on Khyree Jackson and the potential than maybe some Oregon fans who maybe were not as dialed in with that. But it felt like last year there was a major home run with Christian Gonzalez, and everybody said who could be this year's Christian Gonzalez. Well, obviously, Phil Steele says that it could be him. But, I'm really impressed with this amount of work that Phil Steele did. We just talked about this. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work to be done to go that deep into this thing, but that's what these guys do. These guys are all over it, and they have been for years, and they do good work. I was really impressed to see Bucky Irving at the number one spot, Brandon Dorlus on the first team as well. When we're thinking about guys that might translate to the next year's NFL draft, I do think Dorlus has one of those body types that he could be one of those guys they might be looking at. But now you might be looking at a guy like Khyree Jackson as one of those guys might be climbing up draft boards as well.
Yeah, and I'm curious to see how it all plays out because, with Jackson, the reason this caught me so off guard, Ryan, was because of the season he had a season ago at Alabama, which he saw about 100 snaps total, which is not a lot. And just for reference, Jaleel Florence, who was Oregon's fourth cornerback, not safety or defensive back, fourth corner a year ago, saw 200. So he didn't see the field very much. He was, not on the team, kind of got in Saban's doghouse. There's some weird stuff with all that happening. He was, a four-star transfer coming from the JUCO ranks when he got to Alabama. So maybe that's what Steele is kind of seeing here. But Gonzo was coming over with his old position coach, Demetrius Martin, from Colorado. And he'd come off a season in which he was all Pac-12 honorable mention by the time the season came to an end. He was a four-star recruit coming out of high school, graded as a four-star transfer according to 24/7 Sports. That's part of the reason I think I was caught so off guard. I'm not necessarily shocked that Jackson, coming from Alabama, is a preseason nominee, but Trayshawn Holden's coming from Alabama too. He's not on here as a wide receiver, and he's probably going to be the Ducks' number 2 pass catching option. So there's something that I don't know, that we don't know, and look, it could be a great sign, but it was the thing that stood out to me the most because of what happened a year ago. It doesn't seem like a natural progression to, yeah, this guy is poised for an all-conference first-team caliber season.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And, you look at where they want to go with, this year, and you see, there could be a lot of options. There's a lot of good passers out here. Maybe this is a time where a DB can really make a name for himself. Maybe this is a time where you can really kind of get some work in a different spot and bump your numbers up. But yeah, it's going to be an interesting situation going forward. I think the defense has to show up this year to be able to be where everybody wants them to be, and if they can do that, I think a lot of it depends on that backfield really helping them out. Those safeties and DBs are going to have to show up this year.
Yeah, but they need a pass rush to help them out as well, right? Like you
For
can't. There's never been a great defense that hasn't had a great pass rush or the ability to get pressure with four. But a couple other names on the list to point out here from Phil Steele. Once again, you can check it out if you want to see it for yourself. If you go to the Oregon football Twitter account, as Ryan and I learned before coming on to record, is the easiest place to try and find the list. But the second team, Troy Franklin, Camden Lewis. I think Franklin is a first-team caliber talent, but the receiving depth in the Pac-12 is just crazy. Like it's just, you got so many guys in there. Roma Dunze, and I mean Dorian Singer's over there at USC now from Arizona, and T-Mac. I didn't even look at the rest of them for the Pac-12 teams, but I think Troy Franklin being that, I think he is a first-team all-conference caliber wide receiver and can have that sort of season. I think he's just on the second team because he's been really, really good. Other guys have had better stats, and there are just a lot of really, really talented players in there. But, the defensive line guys showing up on this list, the fourth team for Jordan Birch, first team for Dorless, like we were talking about a moment ago, Ryan, that's how a guy like Khyree Jackson, I think, thrives, is Brandon Dorless has another great season. Jordan Birch makes an impact. Popo makes an impact. He's on there as well. I think that's where, the defense really needs to click.
I totally agree, and I think that the linebacker is another one. I think Jeff Boss is going to have a big year, and all those guys up front are all going to help the guys in the back. So I totally agree. Some of these things I think are just created for discussion, right? And it try to get clicks, and there's a lot of truth to it, but I think there's sometimes where you just pick and pull a guy and you move him around just to be able to get some people talking, and that could be one of those. I was kind of intrigued by the Troy Franklin thing, thinking that, from our perspective as Duck fans, I don't know if there's that many receivers that feel like they're better than him in the conference. And obviously there are some players maybe who get better looks or better opportunities, but I think Troy Franklin is going to continue to improve. I think last year was a big step in his development. I think this next year is going to be a big step in his development. And I think he's just got all the tools mentally as well. I think he's just a very solid guy. Every interaction I have with him is very solid. My son is taking pictures. My son took a picture of him last year and became like a finalist for some American Sports Photography Award. And it happened to be Troy's picture, and Troy retweeted it on his page or posted on his Instagram.
Dude, let's go.
And so, yeah. So
Darby's making moves.
Yeah. So I texted Troy. I said, hey, man, thanks so much. All you've done with my son, because he and my son have a pretty good back and forth. And he says his line was so good. He says, it's just bigger than me, boss. And I was like, bro, that's awesome. That's where there's like some things where guys are ready to make that next jump, and part of it is having the bigger picture mindset, and I think that there's a lot of growth still to be had with this team, and I think that's one of the big reasons why Bo came back, is he saw this team might be better next year and might have a better opportunity to work with some of these guys who are really talented. I mean, having Chris Hudson on that list as well is big. Tez on that list, obviously, is a punt returner, but he's going to be a burner this year for that team. And like you said, we don't even have Trey Sean on that list. So I think there's going to be some serious firepower for this Ducks team. It's just whether or not that defense can win you some of these games that they lost last year.
Yeah, I agree. And the other thing with Franklin about, him being able to take another step forward is, number one, look at what he did from year one to year two. So he knows how to grow. He knows how to improve. He has that sort of mindset, because that takes a commitment to film, to the weight room, to, jugs machine for wide receivers. But the other thing too, Ryan, when I watched him on TV at the spring game, he looked big.
Yeah, these guys have all hit the weight room.
This is not a guy who you can describe as one of the skinnies anymore
No,
because he looks absolutely built, and I think is a first or second round talent in the NFL. More to get to with these names because I think there are some guys who could outperform their preseason indication here from Phil Steele, particularly three guys actually on the fourth team. I think could all end up being even better players than that. I think you all could look really good this summer if you go check out Birddog shorts because they have these stretch khaki shorts that are designed to fit slimmer through the thigh and leg by giving you a truly sculpted look. I know that's what Ryan is going for this summer. Wants to look as sculpted as possible,
I mean, I'm working
show off his physique and the beach bod that he so clearly has. Look at him over there flexing the muscles. He'd look even better in Birddog shorts, which do the same thing as Lululemon, but they fit way better. They're comfortable, they're slick, they're versatile. You can wear them in water, on a hike, on the golf course, wherever. Go to birddogs.com/lockedoncollege. Enter promo code LockedOnCollege for a free Yeti-style tumbler with your order. That's birddogs.com/lockedoncollege for a free Yeti-style tumbler. You won't want to take your Bird Dogs off this summer. We promise you, so go get your next order today.
Is coming to double X, Spence? The nice thing about Bird Dogs is, for all body types, right? That's the new thing. We're body positive here at Locked On.
And by the way, you get whatever size you want. Ain't nobody gonna say anything on this show about
bars.
it.
Okay, I'm working on my better built bars. I'm working on
built
my
bars are amazing.
I'm working on my built bars. It's toning. I'm working on getting worked out.
Ryan's
I'm
getting toned.
into these Bird Dogs XL.
Ryan's getting fit. Every dayers here on YouTube know that I have completed the second segment sip, which means we're locked and loaded to keep going with the show. We're going to get to statement games a little bit later as well and then talk about the Ducks who got drafted this year. But I think the guys who were most poised to outperform these preseason selections, Ryan, I look at that fourth team and I see Connerly, I see Popo, and I see Jordan Birch. And I say, if they hit their ceilings, those are first or second team kind of guys because Birch has got crazy athletic potential. Connerly, I think, is going to be a stud. He looked awesome in the spring game. Definitely, I think, going to be Oregon's left tackle this year. And then Popo, I think we forget, was a first-team All-Pac-12 guy when he was healthy. Now, there's a question mark in there. What is he after the injury, right? We saw with Justin Flo. Some guys get hurt. They never get back to what they were. Maybe that's, unfortunately, a possibility for Popo in there. But if he comes back and he's what he was before, I expect him to be an even more impactful player there. But those would be kind of my three pick-to-click guys to kind of outperform their expectations here.
I agree. And all three of those guys also double X on the Bird Dogs. Big dudes, again, I'm a large guy. And when I go up to these guys, I feel comforted. I feel like,
you feel like me talking to any adult.
I'm in the right group. I'm in the big guy group. These guys are large individuals. First time I met Jordan Birch, just in a shirt and a t-shirt, looked like he was in full pads. I mean, the guy is built. We know Connerly. And then I think Popo, you nailed it. I think Popo has seen in his past really, really good football. And he's going to try to get to that level and then to the next. His body type, his mentality. I mean, Popo has always been one of my favorite guys. Super approachable, great guy, just a man of the people. And I really think this is going to be set up for a big year for him. I hope that the defense also kind of works with these guys a little bit, puts them in places to be successful. It felt like there was a time maybe coming out of Mario Cristobal, coming into Dan Lanning, where they didn't really know exactly what to do with some of these defensive guys. And I think Popo's going to have a big year. I think last year, you saw some really good stuff from Casey Rogers. You saw some stuff in the middle where you got to see some pass rush for the first time from the line. You hadn't seen that for a little bit. So I think these guys are poised. Obviously, Popo's a stand-up, take the double team type of guy, allow for, your backers to kind of scrape and make some tackles. But he's going to also make a lot of tackles this year. But Connerly, dude, I can't say enough about Connerly. I mean, I love an offensive tackle like I love a ham sandwich, buddy. I'm telling you, it's just, although I'm not going to say I'm not that big of a ham guy, but either way, it is one of those things where the offensive tackle to me is the sweetest position in all of football. It's a guy who's got to be absolutely beautiful on his feet. He's got to be one of the biggest dudes in the whole team, but he's got to be so quick on his feet. He's got one of the most electric guys right across the front of him, snarling, kicking dirt all of a sudden, and then he's flying 100 yards in a sprinter stance, 100 yards over his other side shoulder, and this guy's got to come out of his stance and back up and go backwards to try to hold on. I mean, it's an incredible dance that this guy has to do, and this guy is unbelievable. I mean, his footwork is so good, and I think the sky's the limit for Connerly. I really do. I think this year he's going to really show, kind of like when we had Penny, and Penny was like effortless. It felt like he was just throwing dudes around. He was so big, but he could also hang with any of the speed guys. I think that's the key offensive lineman, be able to hang that speed off the edge, but also hang that muscle inside. And I think Connerly is going to be amazing this year. So I would expect Connerly to jump up these boards fast and furious. And he, to me, projects to be the next great offensive lineman from Oregon.
Yeah, and, Penei Sewell set his highest standards you possibly can, winning the Outland Trophy, first Oregon Duck, I believe, to ever do that, which is awarded to the best offensive lineman in the country. And, I mean, he did. I love the way you put it. Penei made stuff look easy, and I don't know that you can ever have someone who was that good and that dominant all the time, but Connerly is certainly someone who could give him a run for his money at the very least. And the fun part about it is we get at least 2 years of this guy, Ryan. It'll probably just end up being 2 years, but he looks like he's going to lock down the left tackle position for the next couple of seasons. He stepped in the spring game. He obviously was part of the 14J package a year ago, did very well in his time in those packages, but when he was in that spring game, no one was moving him. You can't budge him. He is an athletic, mobile, really well coached kind of brick wall out there, which is exactly what you want. But I'm interested to see what happens with Popo and Birch as well along the defensive line, because they got to be better across the board. I think we all understand that, and those guys would be at the middle of it if the defensive line does kind of take a jump. Absolutely. I want to shift gears here and hop into a mailbag question that came in from Sam. You can always be a part of the mailbag. Yes, you, whoever you are listening to or watching the show, YouTube comments, drop one in there, or hit me up on Twitter at smalls_55 or at Locked On Ducks. This is from Sam, who went to Lake Ridge High School, by the way.
I'm going to count that against him.
I'm going to hold comment. That is my official
Crosstown
statement.
rivalries in LO.
Holding comment. No, I appreciate you listening to the show, Sam, and sending in this question. Do you think Oregon will have a statement game like they did last year versus BYU and UCLA? And which game do you think it will be? I'll let you start, Ryan. And I think by statement game, referring to those two, he's saying that it's not just a win, but the style in which the game was won, the magnitude of the situation kind of set the tone for what the team could be. And I think BYU was the biggest statement game a year ago because they were, 2-0 off a big win against Baylor. They were ranked 12th at the time, and we blew them out in Autzen Stadium. And that kind of set the tone of, okay, this is not the team that got blown out by Georgia. That was a one-off. We can do good things here. And they, of course, did do some really productive things a season ago. But statement game in 2023, what do you got?
Yeah, statement game is interesting. I think last year the BYU game just answered a lot of questions. There were some questions after the Georgia game, obviously, from the Ducks' perspective.
There were a few.
And so that BYU game just answered a lot of questions. That BYU game felt like it just kind of like, watered the field down a little bit, just controlled things, got things back on track. So, yes, statement game in the fact that they did really well. They played really well. They scored the points. They stopped them. They put up a great number on the board. But I think more importantly to anything else, it just really relaxed people. It allowed people to just have faith in the process that things were going to be okay. And because there was definitely some concerns going into it. I think, if you want to compare Texas Tech to BYU, I don't think Texas Tech is on the level that BYU was last year because BYU the year before, remember, came off of we're undefeated in the Pac-12 and we play so many Pac-12 teams. And
yeah, that's true. They went 5-0 against the Pac-12 South, I think it was. They were like the de facto Pac-12 South champions the year prior. They'd beaten USC, who was down. They beat Utah in the Holy War. They'd beaten Arizona State, and there were other ones in there too. They'd had a good run.
And so, I think that had built up a lot for BYU, right? And then this year, I just don't think that is the case for Texas Tech. But I think the Texas Tech game is going to be a hell of a game going out there. I think they're going to have something for them. But to me, it's all about the 4 big games this year. And you got Washington as your first one. Then you've got Utah. Then you've got USC. And you got the Beavs to end the year. To me, the statement game is if they go up to Seattle and beat Washington. And they beat them convincingly. Because that's the game where if that'll answer a lot of questions. The Ducks are going to go into that game playing the 3 non-conference games. They could be 3-0. They play Colorado and Stanford before that. They could be 5-0. And then they go to Seattle off of a bye week. So it's like, to me, that Washington game is the game of the year until you play Utah up there or until you play USC at home or, But I do think that they could beat Washington. And if they beat Washington, that'd be something else because obviously, those dogs are barking up there. They got the win last year. They feel like they're, primed to have a great year and be a Pac-12 champion type team. They have everything going for them. Home game, a lot of pressure on them. Middle of the season, October. It could be absolutely perfect.
Could be college game day. Could absolutely be college game day.
100%.
Yep.
100%. Just everything seems right for that game. And if that game Oregon shows up and wins by 2 touchdowns or more, I think that you have some questions answered. And the second half of the season people are going to get charged up. Now, I don't know about the biggest, I always think about what's the trap game. And of course, Arizona State's going to be everybody's favorite trap game of the year. But I tend to think that the biggest statement game you could have is the biggest opportunity on the biggest stage, the earliest in the year, because I think that's where the one answers a lot of questions. It's the problem with the Ducks is it's the late in the year collapse. They have won all the early games. It's just whether they can beat a team late down the stretch. So you could have a situation where you beat USC, go to Tempe and lose.
Yeah, I know. I think that is
so
always a fear in the back of our minds.
And I'm fearing that more than fearing going up to Washington. I think the Ducks are going to have a great day up in Seattle.
Oh no, I fear Washington more than I fear Arizona State.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying I fear the late season collapse more than
got you.
That first big road game.
Yeah.
You can go get that.
Yeah. So the way that I would answer this question. If you beat Texas Tech big, that is the first statement game of the year, akin to BYU. Mm-hmm. But I'm with you that it's the Washington game. I don't think, Dion with Colorado, they're still in a rebuilding phase. Stanford's not going to be any good. And then your other 2 games are Portland State and Hawaii. I think Texas Tech and Washington are kind of it's honestly a perfect parallel to BYU and UCLA a year ago because BYU was good, not great, tough, but if you blow them out, it's whoa, okay, exactly. We might have something here. And then the other team, UCLA last year, Washington this year, going to be top 10, could be game day, big environment, big stage, national TV, all that sort of stuff. So I think those would be the games to watch for there.
And the returning quarterback. Everybody's favorite storyline starts with a returning quarterback.
Returning quarterbacks, right?
Yep. DTR last year was a big story.
Yep, I'm completely with you there. Last year was DTR's 5th year. This is Penix's 5th year of college football. Same for Bo, of course. So let's shift gears to wrap up today's show and send Oregon fans off into the weekend. This came from a DM from Guwap the Hawk, which whatever floats your boat, man. Asking about the NFL draftees for the Ducks in 2023 and kind of who has the best fit or who has the best situation. Now, just to remind you, Christian Gonzalez went in the first round of the Patriots. DJ Johnson, the biggest surprise for a Duck to get drafted as high as he did, went in the 3rd round of the Chargers. Noah Sewell, 5th round of the Bears. Big Sala, 7th to the Ravens. Jordan Riley, 7th to the Giants. Forsyth got picked up by the Broncos in the 7th round. And then there were 3 undrafted free agents. Bennett Williams, yes, that Bennett Williams. I think some fans will be surprised by that, but got an undrafted free agent contract with the Dolphins. Chase Cota with the Lions. TJ Bass with the Cowboys. I'll let you start again, Ryan. Which of those players do you think found the best home where he's going to be able to thrive the most?
I think it's easy to say Gonzo because he went first, and the Patriots historically have been a pretty solid program. But I kind of like Big Sala.
Really?
Yeah. And I think the reason why is historically the Ravens have been a very good drafting team. They have had obviously had Ozzie Newsome for years, who was one of the best in the business, what he did. But they really like him. I've watched a bunch of interviews over there. I've seen a bunch of film with him. He is a major league body. Big Sala is.
They don't call him Big Sala for nothing. They don't call him Small Sala.
No, yeah.
I'm Smalls. He is not Smalls. He's opposite of Smalls.
Yeah, I'm mediums next to him. Dude, he's a large human being who is very quick and who has great feet and great skills. The other really important thing, I talked with Ryan Walk about this, they went through so many different types of offensive line coaches' theories during their time. They had different coaches come in with different ideas of what to do. I think that only helps these guys on the next level. So it might not be that sexy of a pick, but I do think that
I like it.
The Baltimore Ravens, good team, have been a good team. They know how to find some gems late in the draft. They don't need to go early in the draft to get a splash player. And I think smart, GMs and smart teams, they do their homework on these guys. Like the Jordan Riley one. I think maybe some people were kind of surprised with the Jordan Riley pick.
I was pretty surprised at that.
But I felt like they had a beat on him early, and they were just waiting, and they were going to get their guy. So I would love to see Noah Sewell. I would love to see him really get a chance to play because I just love that family so much. But, his body type to the modern day position, it feels like might not be the right fit. But he might have to lose some weight to play in the NFL, where most guys have to gain some weight. Big Saul, on the other hand, I think he's got a frame that could really do some things. And I think there's also room on the offensive line. He can play guard. He can play tackle. He's a very versatile player. So, and guys get injured on the O-line. So I think, trying to find a spot as a rookie on these teams is tough. And I hope all the best for DJ, because DJ is one of my favorite guys on this team. I had grown kind of a little bit of a relationship with him over time, and he's just such an amazing player to watch. But I don't know what the hell Carolina's going to do. Carolina, that's what
he got drafted by the Chargers.
DJ Johnson?
Yeah.
That was Carolina.
I could be misremembering here.
My point is, I always think that when it comes to NFL, if you slide back and get to a little bit better team.
Oh, you're right. It was the Panthers. Yeah, my apologies. It is the Panthers, not the Chargers. My bad.
I would have loved the Chargers. Holy crap. I'm a big Chargers guy now that we got Herbie there. But, the thing is I saw some of our guys go really early in the draft, terrible teams. Joey's a year younger than me, completely destroyed by the Lions, right? Achilles Smith to the Bengals. Had those guys not had that high of a draft pick, they might have had another 3 or 4 or 5 good years in the league. I mean, if they slip back a little bit to a better team, you never know. So I think Gonzo is probably the best team because of the Patriots. So that would be the best organizational fit to have them have the most success. But the NFL is such a fickle league. I really don't know half the time. And that's kind of, that's why I don't really get that deep into recruiting. Like you said, about Troy Franklin not being the skinnies anymore. These guys change so much. And, where they're at when they come out of high school compared to where they're at in college, there might not be the same guy physically. So, Gonzo's a guy who, talk about a big dude. I mean, he is large.
He's tall. His
frame,
his tangibles, his measurements, his speed, his agility, hip movement. It is high level. I do think Gonzo is the easy pick here to say he's got the best fit. Because what I remember about watching Gonzo this past season with Ryan was when he was in man coverage, can you think of a single instance in which he was not glued to the wide receiver in front of him? There were times where passes were completed. That's going to happen for every corner at every level, right? But I can't ever think of an instance in which Gonzo was, and I can think of several with a bunch of other of Oregon's defensive backs and corners from this past year where the pass is caught and he's, created 5 yards of separation from the guy. That just never happened with Gonzo. So I think going to a man-heavy scheme like the Patriots is a really, really good fit. But I'm going to go with Noah Sewell here because he is in a culture in Chicago with a defensive head coach that prioritizes that side of the ball. And they are about being a tough, physical, hard-nosed, smash-mouth team, and that is Noah Sewell, man. He is
100.
punch you in the mouth, come downhill. If he can get back, I think, to being fully healthy, which I'm not sure he was a season ago, play sideline to sideline, and look, he might not be the best pass coverage linebacker, but a lot of linebacker tandems or trios have some guys who are better against the pass, some guys who are better against the run, and I think he's a Bobby Wagner type of linebacker, and I see no reason that if he isn't given the opportunity to succeed and doesn't have the right fit, he can't have, maybe not a Bobby Wagner type career because he's one of the best linebackers of the past 20 years, but that he can't have a similarly successful career and play in that style. And Wagner, by the way, is back with my beloved Seattle Seahawks. It's not as if there aren't still places for guys like that in the league, and I think Sewell can do that. So I do think Gonzo's the obvious choice, but I'll go with Noah Sewell.
Well, and Wagner's another one where it's like, I remember how criticized that pick was when they picked him. It was like, oh my God, how could you?
Utah State.
And here this guy becomes an absolute stud,
All Pro Bowl
linebacker,
year
after year.
Yeah,
and he also had a guy that knew how to fit him into the system, right? And Pete Carroll kind of tailor-made some stuff for him and him specifically, and you could tell right away it was the right pick. Year 1, year 2. Oh, yep. Good job, Pete. That was actually the right pick, I think Noah could surprise some people. I agree with you on the level that there's different packages, and he could fit a couple different packages. The thing I always liked about Noah Sewell is they called him the jumbo athlete. Remember that one?
Yep.
Jumbo athlete. And it's like, this guy is about as versatile a football player as you could imagine. The guy could play basically anything. And
you could line him up at edge if you wanted to.
100. And I think that his body type is such that he could get bigger. He could get, leaner, and he's still going to be the same explosive player. He might not be as great in pass coverage. That kind of was shown at Oregon a little bit, but he makes up for it and some with his A-gap coverage. This guy is willing to explode the line.
And the play, and I mean, he's only 6'1", and a traditional edge nowadays is like 6'5", 6'7". I understand that. I think he's 6'1", 6'2", but he's just such a big body. He's a physical. I mean, I talked last year on the show about whether or not Oregon should just take Noah Sewell and just make him an edge player, because we weren't getting a lot out of the linebackers in coverage, and we weren't getting anything from our edge rushers consistently. And I watched Noah Sewell line up at edge sometimes. I'm like, he's quick, he's physical, he's got pass rush moves. I think that all could work, but I just look at Sewell and see a guy who, at his peak, like I think the play that stands out the most with him in his career was that 4th down stop against Ohio State, where you're exactly what you're talking about. A-gap coverage. He identifies the play, diagnoses it, reacts to it, beats the offensive lineman to the hole, and sticks a big, thick running back all on his own and just pile drives him into the ground backwards. I think that's what I think of when I think of Noah Sewell at his best, and I think that's what the Bears can be getting if he can get back to full health. But we are always at our best with Rian Winter. He is at SportsChat503 on Twitter and on YouTube. Ryan, great stuff as always. Enjoy the weekend, my man.
Thank you so much, man. Enjoy. Hit him straight.
Oh, I'll try. I always do. I always do try anyway. But I always try to say I appreciate everyone listening, because I do. Have a wonderful rest of your day. And until next week, as always, go Ducks.